If you're joining me from the previous video, we're in the middle of pulling a key using Keylight. Now, if you just jump to this specific area, you're in luck because we're going to get into some more tips and tricks for actually refining a key inside of Keylight. Now I'm going to zoom in my scene here, and you can see I have some green pixels on the inside of my mat. These pixels are being generated by a setting inside of Keylight. Let's go to the effects control panels and then click on the view pull down. Notice we're set to status. The status gives me a real-time exaggerated mat so I can see exactly the areas that I have to deal with when I'm pulling my key. The green areas are letting me know that I've lost data in that area. The gray pixels are transitional areas, so it's okay to have that around the edge. Let's go to the final result here. Now it looks like a relatively decent key, but unfortunately parts of the background are poking through our model here. So what we need to do is adjust our settings so we don't have any more of those green pixels. We can try that first with some foreground color correction. I'm going to open up the foreground color, and the reason I'm choosing foreground, obviously she's the subject, so she's in the foreground. We can enable color correction. And let's zoom out here just so I can get a better view. She looks a little bit washed out, so I'm going to go ahead and just bump up the saturation here a little bit. That's already looking better. We can go ahead and up the contrast just a tiny bit, not too much. We could adjust the brightness down just by clicking and dragging. And I think that's already significantly better. Now, before I can decide whether or not this is really a good key, I should have something in the background. So if you go to your Shy button here in the timeline, that'll make layer 2 appear. Now let's turn the visibility on for layer 2. Now here's the background we'll use to superimpose our green screen key. Now we've done some foreground color correction, but I still have a neat little halo right around the edge of her hair. So I'm going to zoom in here and press the space bar so I can just sort of move up around the edge of her hair. If you collapse the foreground color correction area, we can go to the edge color correction. Let's go ahead and enable edge color correction. Now with that set up, let's open up the edge color suppression box. In here, we could suppress any other colors that are bleeding off. Usually when I shoot green screen, I end up suppressing the green channel. Now when I click on that, it kind of made her hair a little more white. Let's undo. So I don't necessarily want to suppress any green. What we can worry about is actually making adjustments to the edge softness. So let's click and drag on that parameter. That's just going to soften the edge of the transition. For edge grow, yes, we can click and drag to the right, and it's going to make the edge of the mask grow out a little bit. Let me undo that. But you can also click and drag to the left, and that's going to pinch in the mask a little bit. Now we're getting a little finer detail around the edge. Now the brightness, let's click and drag on that value just to bring that down a little bit. And notice once we got to 100, it just made the edges completely black, which is not what we want. Let's go ahead and work on setting that down. There we go. We could do something around -24. Now if we zoom out to get a better view as to what's going on, you can see while the hair looked well, the edges of her shoulders are now way, way, way too dark. So let's change that brightness value back up to 0. And it looks like that seems to have fixed the issue. Now, just so I can see our composition more clearly, I'm going to press Shift / or the question mark key. Anytime you want to verify that an edge is clean or not, you want to make sure that you're at 100% magnification when you're verifying. Now, I'm going to continue to make some minor adjustments to the edge color correction. Let's click and drag on the contrast. And notice it's pretty sensitive, so I'll just bring the contrast up to around 11 and then see if we can soften that edge a little more just by clicking and dragging. Now, if we move over here to the right area, I'm getting a slight halo around the right side of her arm. Let's disable edge color correction and re-enable it. And you can see it's just primarily dealing with the skin tone. It's actually flattened her out a little bit by enabling it. So we may want to change that a little bit by clicking and dragging the brightness down. Now it's pretty sensitive, so let's only bring it down -2 or 3. Now we can collapse our color suppression and edge color correction section. Let's go back up under our screen mat. We can shrink the mat just by clicking and dragging to the left, and that's going to pinch it in a little bit here. Let's go up top and see what that's done. I'm just going to change the shrink grow value back to 0. Let's shrink it down a little bit, but then we can soften it up. So I'll go ahead and click and drag on the softness. So we've pinched a little bit of the edge of that halo, but then we softened it right back up again. Now we could replace this with the source, or we could choose something like a hard color. When you're making replacements with the screen mat, you want to go ahead and replace with a color that's most dominant in the scene. So I'm going to zoom out here, and I can see definitely a lot of blue, but she has a lot of skin exposed here as well. So I'll click on the eyedropper and just choose the edge of her shoulder. It may look minimal, but if we go back to our status, I still have a couple of my green pixels here, but if we zoom out, you can see in general, it's relatively okay with the key. This area and this area we can deal with by using a mask, and we'll do that in another video. But for now let's go ahead and change our view status from status back to final result. Now to apply our finishing touches, I want to make sure that we watch our clip in real time. I'm going to move my current time indicator back to the start of the composition and load up another RAM preview. Now, as I'm loading this, I know I'm viewing it at 25%, but what I'm looking for is just an overall level of something that I could be satisfied with. So after it loads the first few seconds, I'll go ahead and press the space bar to begin playback. And this actually looks like a pretty decent key, so I'm going to go ahead and stop right now. So we've refined our key by going through some of the other screen mat options, foreground color correction, and edge color corrections. Now, the last thing that I usually do is go ahead and create a mask for any extemporaneous elements that may not be keying out particularly well.